The most terrifying moment for a society is not the moment violence begins. The most terrifying moment is the moment violence goes unnoticed. Much of what seems inconceivable to us today was not even a subject of debate in ancient times. People were not killed amidst screams. Chains were not hidden. Pain, shame, or humiliation were not concealed. Because these were not wrong, they were normal. In the ancient world, a human body could be scrutinized just as easily as an animal in the field. Who would be protected and who would be expended was predetermined, and this decision was made not with anger, but with calmness. No one said, "We are cruel." Everyone simply said, "This is the order of things." This story exists not to recount the brutality of ancient times, but to understand why that brutality seemed logical. Because the darkest systems in human history were established not by monsters, but by normal people. As the morning sun hit the marble stones in ancient cities, markets were set up, philosophers spoke, and children ran in the streets. And on those very same streets, certain people became invisible. Everyone knew who they were, but no one looked at them. Because to look meant discomfort, and discomfort was dangerous to the order. Ancient societies held order above all else, above justice, above mercy, even above the human being. If a practice was widespread, it was right. If something lasted for generations, it was not questioned. And if a system worked, it did not matter who paid the price. That is why in ancient times, evil often advanced not in whispers, but in silence. No one shouted, no one stopped it, no one said, "This is wrong." Because wrong things only disturb when they are called wrong. And the only question we must ask in this episode is this: when does a society fail to realize it has abandoned its humanity? Because by the time someone stands up and says this, it is already too late. It was always like this. And everything we will see in this series from now on was born from this very sentence. In the ancient world, something did not need to be good to be accepted. It only needed to be sacred. People believed they lived alongside the gods. They feared angering them, failing them, displeasing them. And the price of that fear was often paid with human bodies. The moment a society claims it acts in the name of the gods, morality steps aside. Questions disappear. Pain was not an accident in the ancient world. It was a tool, a step on the road to divine approval. When a child was sacrificed, it was not murder. When a body was humiliated, it was not a crime, because it was believed to be demanded by the gods. This belief erased personal responsibility. No one said, "I am doing something wrong." They said, "I am doing what must be done." Temples were not only places of worship, they were machines of legitimacy. If something was accepted there, it was untouchable everywhere else. Rituals speak a clear language. If blood is spilled, it has a reason. If someone suffers, it serves an order. The gods of the ancient world were not required to be merciful. They only needed to be powerful. And the demands of the powerful were always fulfilled through the bodies of the weak. Violence committed in the name of the gods is the safest kind of violence, because it has no perpetrator. And without a perpetrator, there is no crime. That is how bodies were consumed in sacred ceremonies. Voices were drowned in hymns. Screams became part of tradition. And people slept peacefully at night because they believed the responsibility was not theirs. But the darkest question remained: did the gods truly demand this? Or were the gods merely shields used by humans to protect their own systems? The answer only becomes more disturbing from here. In the ancient world, People were not born equal. This was not debated. It was the starting point. Some were born to rule, some to work, and some to be used. This division was not learned later, it was accepted at birth. And once accepted, it became order, not cruelty. Ancient societies did not see individuals, they saw categories: citizens, foreigners, women, slaves. And between these categories, there was no movement. If you were born into the wrong one, morality did not apply to you. Some bodies were protected, others were expendable. The selling of a child, the erasure of a woman's will, the silence forced on a foreigner were not seen as ugly, because they were never considered fully human. Philosophy supported this idea. Nature was used to explain it. Everything has a purpose, they said, and some people's purpose was to make life easier for others. Inequality was no longer a flaw. It became natural law. No one felt cruel because no one claimed equality. When a body suffered, the question was not why. It was, is this their place? And most of the time, the answer was yes. This was the most efficient way to silence conscience. To harm someone, you only need to believe they are not your equal. In the ancient world, this belief was everywhere, in laws, in rituals, in language. And people continued to see themselves as moral while harming others, because cruelty did not count as cruelty when directed downward. But here lies the most dangerous fracture of humanity. Once some are declared less human, everything becomes possible. And this logic leads us into an even darker system in the next chapter. The longer cruelty lasts, the more invisible it becomes. In the ancient world, the most dangerous form of oppression was the one that felt normal. No one reacts to what they see every day. No one notices violence they constantly live with, because the mind redefines normal to survive. That is why certain things caused no reaction. The sound of chains, humiliation, bodies living under command. Everyone saw the same scenes. Once a system is established, questioning it is no longer virtue, obedience is. People were born into systems, professions were inherited, roles were fixed, order mattered more than individuals. This is how it has always been, was not just a phrase, it was a world view. When a slave was whipped and no one stopped to watch, it was not because violence was absent, it was because of habit. Cruelty survives not by shouting, but by whispering. And those whispers passed through generations. No one felt responsible for the whole system. Everyone simply performed their task. Orders were given, orders were executed, and the consequences belonged to no one. Order became more valuable than human life. If order collapsed, chaos would follow. If chaos came, everyone would suffer. This belief justified even the harshest practices. Pain was no longer a choice, it was a side effect. And side effects are not questioned. The darkness of the ancient world did not come from its brutality, but from its silence, because no one screamed, no one rebelled, everyone knew their place. And that silence was the greatest form of complicity. In the next chapter, we will see how this order turned into profit. No system survives by sustaining cruelty that harms itself. In the ancient world, oppression was not just habit, it was profit. For some, pain was necessary to maintain order. For others, it was directly beneficial. Slavery was the clearest example. Cheap labor, total obedience, bodies used until exhaustion. But it did not end there. There were wars, exiles, people sold because of debt. Every crisis became an opportunity for someone else to grow richer. In ancient times, the human body was treated as a resource, like land, like minerals. And resources exist to be exploited. That is why the death of some people was nothing more than a number in a ledger. Pain spoke the language of economics. No one listened to screams, they looked at productivity. When a system turns humans into tools, their lives are no longer sacred. This logic made even the bloodiest practices cold and efficient. The death of a slave was dismissed with one phrase, "There will be another." Because systems value continuity, not individuals. And that continuity is built on absence. When people begin to live off the suffering of others, suffering stops being a moral issue. It becomes an investment. The horror of the ancient world was not win-lose, it was win-erase. And systems like this do not invite questions, because those who profit silence them. But every system has a breaking point, and in the next chapter we will witness the first cracks.